Welcome to the first module of this e-learning series on financial modeling for public-private partnerships brought to you by the World Bank and DFID. In this module, we will briefly review the public-private partnership definition and its guiding principles. We will also learn the role of financial analysis in determining public-private partnership feasibility. It is important to remind you that this mode of teaching is a participatory one. That means that you will be learning from the knowledge and experience of others, such as yourself. Let's begin this module by reviewing key public-private partnership terms and concepts.
Got a question. All right, so in that second phase of our PPP project cycle, we have feasibility studies. This is a whole, like looking at all the various steps in feasibility analysis. But we're concentrating on this one, financial analysis. We want to know, can we make a project that's affordable and bankable? That's what this is going to help answer, okay? Is it going to make it bankable? Is the government going to have to contribute to the project? Does it make sense for the government to contribute to the project? So we need to know how much it costs to build something, or estimate what it's going to cost to build something. These are our direct costs. It's also how much is it going to cost to operate it? All right? How much is it going to cost to maintain it over its life? These are all the costs that go into a project.
Having taken a look at PPP management and requirements, my colleague Ned White will now take you through public-private partnership financial analysis. He will also lead you through some case examples.
This first part here is, as we're calling it, the time value of money calculations. Now again, I want to provide a little bit of a before we get down into the weeds and the details of this, let's understand what it is we want our financial models to tell us. Even if you don't have a financial background, what is it that we're really seeking from a PPP financial model? Here's a general checklist of the things I think are most important. Number one, when we do financial models in the feasibility study phase, what we really want to know, most importantly, how much revenue is this project going to require to be financially sustainable? And that revenue can either come from end user fees or it can come from availability payments. But what we want to know is to cover all of its costs and to be sustainable so that the business, and when we say sustainable, this means will it be there again tomorrow? Is it earning enough money to cover its costs so that it will be there for its entire planned life, such as for 20 years? What is the revenue, the approximate revenue needed to cover all costs? Meaning, and as John mentioned, acceptable to private investors as well as bankable. You could say that for commercial lenders. We'll get into more details on that. We want to know how much it will be in terms of end user fees. Break down the revenue a little bit and say, well, how much does this actually mean in per unit costs, tariffs or fares, or tariffs per unit costs for end users, or availability payments for contracting authorities. So we can determine, is it affordable? In some sectors, maybe it's water or electricity, we may even have certain affordability limits set. It may be that a sector regulator like EWURA might have set tariffs for water or electricity, and we're going to want to compare our PPP project to it. If we do the PPP project, will end user tariffs still be within that affordability limit? We're also going to want to know, for any private investor, how much is the upfront investment going to cost? There's a fancier name for that. It's called the capital investment. But it's basically saying if we want to start out with this project, whether it's a marketplace, a bus terminal, you name it, how much new investment is going to be required before we can begin operations? Any private investor, especially PPPs, where we're looking to our private partners to fund that initial investment. How much is it going to be, approximately? When we do value for money analysis, one of the things that we look at in value for money analysis is a comparison. We want to compare the total costs of a PPP project with the total costs of the project if the same project were done by the government, and comparing those two. That's one of the elements in a value for money analysis. So that's another thing that our financial modeling should tell us. Which option offers the better value for money? We also mentioned sort of things like stress testing. John mentioned this, also called sensitivity analysis. What would happen to the project if we test out risks? Typical risks might be, what if the construction costs were actually higher than anticipated? What if construction costs were 20% higher? What if the revenues received or the market and demand for the project was 20% lower? Or what if there are changes in inflation? These are simple things that I hope you're going to be able to do with another's financial model if it's properly designed. And one of the things I want you to do is become better clients of the work of PPP consultants, demanding and requiring that your consultants give you something that you can test out and use. And sometimes there are consultants who take shortcuts, or there are consultants in a very practical world who might give you certain models that are inflexible.
Here are some takeaways. Financial analysis requires an understanding of revenue, costs, and financing, and that financial analysis is critical in determining public-private partnership feasibility.
I'd like to provide you with some additional takeaway points from this first module dealing with time value of money calculations. The first point is that, as the title implies, money has time value. So when we talk about an amount of money, the next thing that we want to know is, when do we need to pay that amount, or when will we receive it? Secondly, for PPP projects that occur over a long period of time, 10 or 20 years, the impact of time on these valuations can be quite significant. Third, the fairest way to actually compare different costs spread out over time is through the process of present valuation. When we do present valuation, or discounting as we call it, we're comparing money today with money today. And then finally, when we do present valuations, understand that this process requires selecting a discount rate. Understand the discount rate reflects all of the risks or uncertainties we face in actually realizing those cash flows. And that risk is fundamentally a subjective phenomenon. My idea of risk is going to be different from your idea of risk. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this first module on time value of money calculations. We hope you'll join us for Module 2, dealing with PPP risk identification, as well as financial statement analysis. Thanks for joining us.